Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Dr. Spotfire live session for this month. We're going to talk about developing data functions in Spotfire. I have Alan Martins from Spotfire. You want to say hi to the audience, Alan?
Hi, everyone.
All right. Well, before we start, I want to remind everyone that is not familiar with Spotfire that go to spotfire.com. Spotfire is a visual data science platform. It's not a tool, it's just a platform that can be extended in so many different ways and helps people to create and solve complex industry-specific business problems. And this is our Dr. Spotfire. We are live every month, the first Tuesday of every month at 11 a.m. Central. And the sessions are going to be recorded for you to watch them later. So our motto is learning is not driven by answers, but by questions. So I encourage everyone that has a question, you can ask your questions right away. And if not, we'll have moment for questions at the end of the presentation. It's only 30 minutes long, so it's going to be very focused. So with that, I want to introduce Alan Martin, lead technical account manager, Spotfire, and go ahead, Alan. The floor is yours.
All right. Okay. Right. Thanks, Jose, and welcome everyone. So, like Jose is saying, my name is Alain Mortis, and today I'll show you a demo on how you can improve your productivity for Spotfire Python data functions by developing them directly in Visual Studio Code. Here's just our standard confidentiality and disclaimer slide. And for the agenda, I'll start with a short introduction on what data functions are and what the challenges are for developing them directly in Spotfire, and what the alternative essentially is. Now, then I'll perform a demo where I'll start building a data function from beginning to end. And I'll do that following some best practices that I'll share with you. And at the end, then I'll just recap what we've covered, and I'll share a couple of resources where you can find out more. All right, so you might know that with Spotfire, it's very easy to leverage data functions to make advanced analytics accessible to your business users. Now, for example, here you can see that a business user can use intuitive controls that automatically trigger data functions and update the visuals. But if you've ever developed advanced Python data functions directly in Spotfire, you might have noticed a couple of pain points. Sometimes you can see some very cryptic error messages like the ones you see here. And there's no autocomplete. There's not a lot of debugging options, and there's also no large language model coding assistance inside of Spotfire. Now, on the other hand, Visual Studio Code is an open source, world-class IDE, and it offers a lot of useful developer features like IntelliSense, linting, step-by-step debugging, auto formatting, version control, and of course, coding assistance through Git Copilot. And a lot of other useful features for developers. So the question is, wouldn't it be amazing if we could combine these two worlds, right? And that you could be confident that the Python code that you would develop inside of VS Code would behave exactly the same inside of Spotfire. Now, you might think, well, okay, then I'll just develop my code in VS Code and then I'll copy it over in Spotfire. So what's the big deal, right? But there are some challenges with this approach. And one is you often need to have access to your data to effectively develop. But exporting your data to CSV files and importing them in VS Code is very time consuming and not very effective. And the other challenge is that your code might work in your development environment with your own Python interpreter, but if you would then copy it over into Spotfire, because of some missing packages or other discrepancies, it might not work there. So in my demo today, I'll cover how you can overcome these challenges, both of these challenges. And the process for effective development that I'll be covering today is the following. So first, we'll run a boilerplate data function inside of Spotfire, which will export your data to a pickle file. And then we move over to VS Code. And from here, we'll configure VS Code to use the Spotfire's Python engine. And you have to, I'll show you how to configure that. You only have to do that once. And then inside of VS Code, we run a 2-line Python script that imports the data from step A. And then after you've developed and tested your code inside of VS Code, then we can confidently bring back your script inside of Spotfire and continue the development. Right, so let's move over to my demo. So in this step, I will develop a Python data function from start to finish, following the best practice that I just showed you. And then for my example, I've been inspired by a question on the Spotfire community. And the question is that, is there a way to dynamically remove empty columns from my data set? So here you see a data set that I've loaded, and you see that there are some columns with some empty values, and there's a column with which is totally empty. So what I'll do is I'll create a data function called clean data, which takes 2 inputs. One is the original data table, and second is a Boolean to determine if columns should be removed if all values are empty, or also if some values are empty. And the data function will return a data table or a cleaned or cleansed data table. Right, so if we take a look again at our process, we'll start here with running some boilerplate data function to export our data. So we'll register a data function, and we'll call it clean data. And first we have to configure our parameters. So let's say input table is the first one. It's the table, and we're okay with all of the data types, and it's a required parameter. And our second parameter, let's call that how. It's a value, and this is a Boolean value, like I mentioned. And as for the output parameter, we'll call this one result, and it will be a table. And like I said, we will have to run a boilerplate code, and for that, I'll use a script from a community article, which I have open here. Of course, we'll add the link to this in the description. And here you see this boilerplate code. And I'll just paste it into my editor. And what this script is doing, it looks at our input parameters, and it will store them into a file with this location. Now, of course, you can change the file location, but it's important that the folder already exists before you execute this. And that's what you can see here. So this is an empty folder for now. And then so the thing we need to do now is we have to run this data function. We get a warning because none of our input parameters have been referenced explicitly in our script, but that's okay for now. So we'll just say yes. And now we can map our input data table. So let's say for an input data table, we can specify which columns to use. We can use all, or for example, a subset. Let's do that. So we'll just focus on our lot and process parameters. And here on the how, for now, we'll just do a a hard-coded value. And our output will be a new data table, which we'll call result. So at this moment now, our data function executes, and we see that it's giving us an error. I'll just close this one for now, and it's embedded in the analysis, so we don't need to save it to the library. And if I click on this error, you see that it's that at least in the log here, you see that the data has been saved successfully to this location, and that's all we need for now. So at this moment, if you look into the location, you see that we now have this this file, and this essentially contains the data that we need. So at this moment, we're okay in Spotfire. And if we take a look at the next step, we can now configure inside of VS Code to use Spotfire's Python engine. All right, so if I'm here in VS Code, and typically when I start developing a new data function, what I do is I create a new folder, something like this, and I simply drag over that folder into VS Code. And at this moment, I can now create a new file. Let's call it clean.py, and py is the Python extension. And here we now need to specify a VS Code to use Spotfire's Python interpreter. Now I can do that by going to View Command Palette. And here you can type in Python select interpreter, and this is the one that I search for last, so that's why it's on top. And now here you can say enter the interpreter path. Now you can browse for it using the file explorer, or you can go into Spotfire and say tools, Python tools, and you can click here to copy the path to the clipboard. Now I typically paste this here in a text editor first, because you need to strip off the quotes, like so. And then if you copy it over, now inside of VS Code, you can paste this and then click enter, press enter to confirm. And you can double check if the interpreter has been configured properly if you hover over, and you see here that this indeed is the correct interpreter. So what I've done now is that whenever I execute something inside of VS Code, it will actually run it in using the Spotfire's Python interpreter. So this is give me some confidence that whatever I execute here will also work inside of Spotfire. All right, so now the next step in our process is to run the boilerplate Python code in VS Code to import our data. So again, we hop over to our article, and now we go over to this, these three lines. And here we just paste this in. And now typically what I do is I just select the ones that I'd like to execute and press Shift Enter, which gives me executes these lines that I've selected. Now here you can see a green check mark, which means that I've executed this successfully. And what's interesting now that I can click here on these Jupyter variables, and here we can see that the data that was inside of this pickle file is now part of this Python session. And of course, I now can start to use this information and develop my my data function to leveraging these values. What you see here, there's this how parameter, or how variable with the value of true. And you see there is also this input table, which is a data frame with the dimensions of 204. And if I click on this icon, you see that I can actually see some profile of my data, how many missing values I have, for example. And we can see the dimensions are 200 by 4. Now I wanted to I show you the benefit of what I'm doing here. So suppose you are developing now here inside of VS Code, and you would realize saying, oh, I'm actually needing some additional values, an additional data table, or some additional parameters. Now, then you would go back inside of Spotfire, and you would go to your data function and change your parameters, right? So if you remember, I started executing this with just 4 columns. But if I now say, now let's do all of them, and say okay and okay again. Now again, my data function fails, but again here you see that the data has been saved successfully. It's been overwritten essentially. And now again, if I here execute these lines again inside of VS Code, and so yeah, somehow there is this little issue that if I execute it twice, it doesn't work. So let me just reopen it. All right, so now it's okay. And if I say here now to my Jupyter variables, let's see. I believe that I now have these 7 columns that I've exported. So I now have my different data here that that I can use. By the way, this is the way that I can see this is coming from an extension that I've installed. It's called Data Wrangler. I have a list of extensions that I typically use. I'll show that on the slide a bit later. All right. So at this moment now I have access to my data inside of VS Code, and of course I can start to develop it. Now you can do it just by typing, right? Saying, okay, so I need input table, or right. And you see that also the autocomplete already kicks in. But you can also do the lazy thing, which I like to do, and that's using GitHub Copilot. Now, I've written a small prompt, which essentially instructs the Copilot to create a Python function which drops fully or partially empty columns if based on the parameters that I have here. Now you can see here that it actually creates it's a very simple script, right? But that's intentional, of course. To drop some empty columns, I can insert it into my script. And let's close this one. And you can see that it drops. It uses the input. Here it defines my function, which says drop empty columns, and it uses some a parameter to determine if if the column should be dropped if all values are empty or some of them are empty. Of course, I can now here again do Shift Enter to execute this. And let's, for argument's sake, let's here run this, and you see that here now my result is being returned. And like this, you can start to develop your code inside of VS Code. Now, another thing I wanted to point out. So, suppose you have a more advanced script that you like to develop, and then you can leverage things like a debugging. So here you can create a breakpoint, and here inside of VS Code, you can click on Run and Debug. You have to specify the debugger and to apply this on this script. And now it will execute your code until your breakpoints. You can see also what the values are. And you can even overwrite them. So suppose I want to test the other path, right? So I can say false, and then say, let's do a step into. And you see that it now has the value of false is applied. So now it actually goes into my other part of my code. And of course, I now can run it all to the end just to determine if I have any errors. But this all looks good, and of course, yeah, like I said, you can also leverage GitHub Copilot to on certain sections. So if you only do you select some individual lines, you can ask it to rewrite. If you do Control K and then have some only interpret it in terms of in parts of your code. But for now, this looks good. All right. So if I go now back to our process again, we've now developed and tested our code, and of course now it's time to copy back my script into Spotfire. And what I typically do is I highlight these lines and do Control / to comment it out, because this information is just for our boilerplate, and we don't need that inside of our Spotfire data function. So then I'll just copy this code, and I can replace it inside of my data function. I'll just do Control A and Control V. And I can save it. And if I now refresh my data table, it gives me the result. One thing I wanted to point out here as well is sometimes you need some additional libraries. Now, if you would refer to them here by saying import and then some package, it might be that this package is not available. So suppose let's see. Okay, this one is. Okay, let's say this is a package that is not that's not installed. You see this squiggly line here, and that's because I use another extension called Pylance, which looks into which type of libraries I have inside of my interpreter, and it informs me that this is not installed. Now, if this is very useful, right? Because it gives you the instruction if you would actually have to install this package, you would have to go here to Python Tools, go to the package management tab, and install the required package. And if you then do that, and then go back into VS Code, then it would actually VS Code will actually pick up on the fact that this package has been installed, and you can continue developing. Right. So yeah. So now at this moment, I now have a working data function, and just for argument's sake, I'll just make it a bit more dynamic. Right. So suppose I create another table here, and we'll do the result. And then I can add a text area to add some controls. So, for example, let's do let's reorganize it a bit, and let's say I would like to have a drop down with two options, right? To control if I would like to it also drop the columns with some empty values or only fully empty values. So it's a Boolean, of course, default by false, which is okay. And let's do unique values in this column. Unique fixed values, I mean. So let's say drop if all empty, and drop if partially empty. And of course, now at this moment, this drop down doesn't do anything yet because I haven't tied it to my parameters of my data function. But I can change that to say, okay, this is a value, but it's not a fixed value, but it's actually a listening to a document property. And I also like to automatically refresh it every time. If I change it, it also picks up on this change. Now, if I change it like this, I should actually have done it the other way around, but I think you get the point here. So now it's dynamically listening to my data function, and this is the development from starting to end. Right. So let me just go back to presentation mode. Yeah. So what we've seen is we've started by executing some boilerplate code inside of Spotfire to export our data to our pickle file. And it can be different things, right? It can be individual values, it can be columns, it can be full tables. You can also, we've seen how you can, inside of VS Code, configure the Spotfire's Python engine. And then we've run the code inside of VS Code to be able to import our data into our Spotfire sessions that you can conveniently develop. And then we've looked at how you can do step-by-step code execution, do some debugging, inspect your variables, and change the value of if there's any need to. And of course, we've now copied it back into Spotfire with the confidence that it will actually work. Like I said, I installed a couple of extensions inside of VS Code, and these are the ones that I've used. What's nice about VS Code is sometimes it will actually suggest you to install a plugin, or it will recommend a plugin for you, and that's typically how I go about things. Here's just a link to the article that I use, but I'm pretty sure that Jose will also provide that into the comments. Yeah, and that's about it. What I wanted to share with you. So thanks. Over to you, Jose.
All right. Well, let's go back to the presentation, and thank you very much, Alan, for the feedback, for the great presentation. It's a great way to debug data functions using Visual Studio Code or any other IDE. That's a great way to do that. So just to remind you what is Dr. Spotfire and how it works, we have monthly sessions like these ones, and we also have quick tips. We release quick tips every now and then, and frequently basis, very short videos. And these come from the ideas portal, your feedback through the Spotfire community or the ideas portal that you can suggest ideas and whatnot. LinkedIn, we also have comments through LinkedIn directly, or email, and social media, or even the YouTube comments. Remember that this session is recorded. You can watch it later. You can see the description and get access to the links that were provided. And when we get that customer input, then it can derive on a monthly session or quick tips. This has been a topic that many has requested. And then if it's something short, we do quick tips. But then these also can evolve and derive to custom visualizations. If you have an idea for industry-specific custom visualization for oil and gas or high-tech manufacturing or life sciences, we can create a custom visualization that address those needs. Data functions, specific data functions, or maybe Spotfire apps through different components, accelerators, articles, and you name it. So thank you for your feedback, and hopefully we can help you better with the product and updates. Remember that we are on YouTube. This is our channel, Dr. Spotfire, and you can always subscribe for our recorded sessions. Lastly, we have the doctor@spotfire.com. Send us an email if you don't want to post your questions or suggestions publicly. Maybe you have some confidential data. You can always ask us directly at doctor@spotfire.com, and you can share your ideas for new demos or data function scripts, mods, tips and tricks, articles, white paper, you name it. With that, thank you very much. If there are any questions, I'm going to wait a little bit more. We have a couple minutes left. If you have any questions, I am looking at some comments here from Sachin Kalam. Thank you so much for your feedback. And if there's not anything else, then we hope to have those comments in the in the YouTube channel, and we will address them accordingly. Thank you very much, Alan. Thank you very much, guys, and see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.